With me, Patrick Soko, and my usual co-host, Shalom Kalimbola. Good morning, Madam.
Good morning, thanks, Patrick. Good morning to the viewers. Welcome to it. Indeed, it is the Breakfast Show Thursday edition. When you see us on the screens, just know that we are talking things that are hot in the city and the country at large. Obviously, Malanja's seat was... he lost his seat yesterday. His election was nullified. So, apart from the KWACHA parliamentary seat that we were discussing yesterday, we are yet to hear when these two by-elections will be held. Obviously, they will be held back-to-back, or if not for the same day, because it's almost within the same period that the Speaker of the National Assembly needs to sign that SI and allow the Electoral Commission of Zambia to set the dates for both nomination and voting for these two parliamentary by-election. Of course, the CEO for Electoral Commission of Zambia, Mr. Patrick Shindano, left the institution on mutual grounds, according to a statement that was issued by ECZ Corporate Affairs Manager Patricia Luhanga. We will be discussing all those things. You will be able to give us your say on what you think is going to happen at that institution. Very political institution, Patrick. Many people call it, so others actually are saying he went to that institution while it was at a very bad time, and he's living it at a very good pace. And so, well, we are yet to hear all those things from you, our viewers. Thank you so much for choosing us. Let's look at how the doctors are faring this morning with their health corner. Let's look at this.
Camnet TV is becoming big and better. You can now watch Camnet TV wherever you are around the world, simply by downloading the Camnet TV app.
Good morning, Camnet viewers. Welcome to today's breakfast show. And on today's Health Corner, we continue the discussion on cystic fibrosis that has been started since Monday. And having this discussion with you is myself, Salam Lenga, coming to you from the Medical and Women's Association of Zambia and the medical doctor with the University Teaching Hospital's Children's Hospital. All throughout the week, we've been discussing cystic fibrosis, a genetic chronic condition that is multisystemic, affecting different organs of the body, and that needs different disciplines or multidisciplinary approach to the management of this condition. We discussed on Monday that this is a condition which was exclusive or known to be exclusive to the people of Caucasian descent or European ancestry. But in recent medical research in the last decade or two, we have known that Africans are being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. And today's focus will be on raising awareness within Zambia on the fact that cystic fibrosis can be diagnosed in our indigenous Zambian children of African descent. Because we know that South Africa, Malawi, Kenya, Uganda are diagnosing this condition in their indigenous population. We know that ethnically we're very similar, and therefore we do expect such conditions or such mutations within our population. The month of May has been designated world over internationally as the cystic fibrosis month of awareness, where advocacy is raised for cystic fibrotic patients, but also raising awareness in our communities that may otherwise not be aware of this condition, which was earlier made exclusive only for the white race. On this account, we are focusing on the Zambian community, raising awareness for the fact that neonates can be diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, or it can be later diagnosed in adolescence or adulthood, and therefore it is important to have it in the back of our minds when you have a child or an adolescent or an adult who for a lifelong has been presenting with chronic lung infections, difficulties in breathing, difficulties in gaining weight, failing to thrive, malnourished, even with no food insecurity. They just don't seem to pick up weight, and they always have this chesty cough, wet cough. It should be something in the back of our minds as parents, as caregivers, but as clinicians as well. It has raised our index of suspicion, because we know that Africans of indigenous African descent, black race, can have cystic fibrosis. Let us also remember that the condition has variety of signs and symptoms, and they're non-specific to cystic fibrosis, and therefore having one or two of the signs and symptoms discussed does not automatically diagnose cystic fibrosis, but it is a medical condition that will be diagnosed by a specialized clinician with the history coming from you as caregivers or you as a patient with all the complaints. It is important to have it on our list of the possible causes, because now we know that Africans, indigenous black Africans, can have cystic fibrosis, unlike past data which showed that only the white race or the Caucasian European ancestry had cystic fibrosis. This has been the breakfast show on the Health Corner with me, Salam Lenga, from the Embrace Teaching Hospital, coming from the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. Have a good day.
There you have it. Cystic fibrosis was the topic for today. And
I like the way you're mentioning it. Cystic fibrosis, very, very systematic, you know, and impressive at the same time. But of course, Patrick, the KWACHA has been doing very good for the past 2 days.
Yes.
And let's just see if at all this morning it's still faring on the same trajectory.
Well, the Zambian kwacha is buying at 1 kwacha and selling at one kwacha. That's against Mr. Marunda puts the kwacha against the kwacha there. So let's see how the US dollar is buying at 15 kwacha 87 ngwe and selling at 16 kwacha 18 ngwe, and the euro is buying at 16 kwacha 12 ngwe and selling at 16 kwacha 43 ngwe, and the great British pound is buying at 19 kwacha 26 ngwe and selling at 19 kwacha 64 ngwe, and the South African rand is buying at 19 kwacha 95 ngwe and selling at 96 ngwe. Well, that's those are your money market. Quite interesting. The kwacha is still trading within the same bandwidth, and we just hope that it will remain on a stable trajectory, because this will also reflect on how the next announcement by the Energy Regulation Board will be regarding the fuel pump price, because at the moment Zambians have been celebrating a reduction of 3 kwacha. It is a lot, especially when you're spending more on fuel. So people have been given a sigh of relief, Sharon, because of that same reduction, and we just hope that the Road Transport and Safety Agency and its partners move in quickly to ensure that they just stabilize the prices of bus fares, because they assured us that within the course of this week and they should get back, and we just hope they do that today, so that Zambians can also benefit from this reduction that comes with the reduced pump price of fuel. Sure. Indeed,
Patrick, we are expecting the Road Transport and Safety Agency and its cooperating partners. Obviously, they are waiting for the Ministry of Transport and Logistics to actually sign in or buy into the suggestions that were brought forward. I think they had a meeting on Monday or Tuesday with the transporters, people in the transport sector. So yeah, it is expected that at least even today or tomorrow an announcement will be made over the reduction. We're just not sure if at all they will reduce according to how fuel has been reduced. However, the 3 kwacha is quite huge, and they need to reduce at least by 2 kwacha. I think we had a discussion where we said they need to reduce at least by 2 kwacha, and that would be fair enough for the passengers or the consumers. So really, those are some of the trending issues happening in our country. Of course, Patrick needs a third pair of eyes, not actually a second, because I saw how he was struggling to read those figures. You know, and also BMAG just puts the kwacha against the kwacha. I mean,
yeah, they only a pair of eyes.
What were you trying to do? So yeah, he needs a pair of eyes, and we will see how it's going to pan out. However,
no, it won't work. Yeah, you are enough with 4 eyes. You are enough.
It will.
Adding 2 will be 6 eyes.
It will. So Patrick, one of the trending stories really as of yesterday across the country, we took a sample. It's just that we didn't film, but we took a sample of Siavonga. It was also heated with a lot of irregularities. People went there with uncertified results, of which they were told you need to come here with certified results. I'm not sure if it was the case here. You covered the story with Prudence Rota from the initial point that the people were told to meet, that is Lusaka Business Education Center, something like Skills Development Center.
Lusaka Business and Technical.
I know that as Lusaka Trades. So can I maintain that? I'm an odd timer, Patrick. Honestly, I know it as Lusaka Trades.
To remain as an odd timer. This is the
I know it as Lusaka Trades. So all this Lusaka business, it just confuses me. But however, those that were there in my time will know that.
In your time, which time we win?
Will know that it's Lusaka Trades until they were told to say go to Hero Stadium because the venue was small. Tell us about it, Patrick. And you also brought in a unique angle where one of the students saw an opportunity for business. This is what the president wants. Business opportunities. Open your mind. Tell us about how it went and how the whole situation panned out.
Well, I think from the morning we just got a tip to say things are not happening here at the Lusaka Business and Technical College, where the Zamsters were supposed to be having exams for the people who are supposed to be numerators as well as supervisors under the census of population that is scheduled to take place this year. And we saw that there were huge crowds there, and when we went inside the college, we actually found long queues, and when we saw the queues, we thought that was it. We didn't know that it was waste at the
political rally.
Yes, when we went there, that's where we found a political gathering where, if you were to address the people there, you'd actually be popular.
Why did you do that? It was an opportunity. You'd have said Kwacha.
I was going to say, all of you have qualified. I'm going to give you the jobs. You have also all been selected, and make sure you remember me when voting. But that was just a lighter note. But Sharon, of course, the situation was not good. We understand that this is many people have also taken it as a reflection of lack of employment in Zambia. But also it also shows us to say it's not that everyone else who was there as is not employed, but others were also looking for extra income. To say I can also make an extra income, but that will come as the numbers were just overwhelming, and I don't know with what criteria they were using. For me, I think if it's like they just made sure that whoever applied was automatically selected. Then they say no, we'll choose when conducting the aptitude tests. For me, I think that's where the main mistake it was. Because if they knew the numbers they would want in Lusaka, they would have just settled for those numbers and just forget about the rest. Because everyone was there, Sharon. And I tell you, there was confusion because at the time there were, I only saw about 5 police officers, only 1 or 2 male, about then the other one were female, and they couldn't even manage.
They couldn't manage to man the situation.
The situation, Sharon. It was tense, to tell you, but I just hope that authorities will plan better next time, because what we witnessed yesterday is not conducive, because we are also at a time when the country is having the COVID-19.
It's still there.
So
it's still there.
Much as we don't talk much about the COVID-19 issue, it is still there. So issues pertaining to social distance
cannot be observed.
All the guidelines need to be observed, but the way it was there, if someone is infected, probably we may see a number of cases escalating, because it wasn't just conducive, and there were just too many people. So we saw people being addressed to say, you have to after some time, Shan, because it was hard. They say make a queue.
There was no queue because there were too many people.
Then they changed the form and said, okay, let's have the male
this side, the female this side.
Okay, the female this side, the male this side. Then again, Sharon, it wasn't easy. Then they said, okay, let's now branch into constituencies. Mandevu on the corner, Matero on the corner, everywhere, because everyone in Lusaka was here. So that one was about to work. Then they also suggest, okay. Then we saw the permanent secretary coming over to just address the people and say, everyone else, we are going to Hero Stadium. Those who have transport, go there. Those who don't have transport will be providing transport. By the time transport was arriving, I don't know if it did even arrive, but others just used their own initiatives to just make sure that they found themselves there. And I know others may have given up just by the Lusaka Business and Technical College there, because probably you don't have transport.
Exactly.
You can imagine. Then you go to Hero Stadium again. So those challenges did come out, and Prudence did cover that story, and we're also streaming it live, and people saw for themselves what was actually happening.
Exactly. The whole situation, Patrick, speaks volumes. There are two sides of a coin, and for me, it's either an employment issue or people wanting to cash in the quickest way possible, because I'm weighing in the issue of cashing in the quickest way possible, because we also did a story from Petauke District, Eastern Province, where one of the teachers decided to apply, in as much as the memo was very clear from Zamstats to say all those in formal employment civil servants are not supposed to apply for these positions. They are strictly for those people who are jobless, the youths especially. But then we saw a teacher applying, and his name was called, because in Petauke there were not as many people as here, so they were calling names. Here they just started putting them in constituencies, and they were calling Mandevu, they go. But for that side, they were calling names to go and sit for the aptitude test, and this man was called, and members of the public identified him, and fortunately the district commissioner was there, Martha Mulenga, and started having a bit of a confrontation, asking him, why are you doing this? You're already getting paid. This thing was supposed to be for a specific type of people. So really, others really wanted to cash in the quickest way, while others, it's unemployment levels that wanted, they wanted to make something out of it. But then my thinking is, shall we move away from this issue of always wanting to work under someone? Because Patrick, really, I know that we have high numbers of unemployment, but honestly, if all of us, or if 80% of us were innovative enough to just do other things, I don't think we'd spend a productive day on the queue for that job.
Yeah, you are right, Sharon. But I also would think I'm
hoping they want to use these resources if they are picked. I'm hoping they want to use the money for capital.
Yes, yeah, that's where I was heading to, because
I'm hoping
you
for
that. 5 handbags, and that's your capital. 5 handbags. You supply to Prudence, Miriam, and whatever. But you would want to increase the to beef up to make sure that it is 10 handbags. So what do? If you can do that this week, you are able to buy those 5 handbags. So it also comes in as an opportunity, but it also shows you that how much Zambians are in need of opportunities. It tells you the desperation. Most of the people we found there are young people, Sharon. Young people. And
Exactly.
this was Lusaka. And for me, when we went to stadium, you may be confused as if you are rewatching the match against Zambia.
It is Mozambique.
All right. We may overturn the loss that we lost to against Mozambique.
A rematch. All right, let's look at the stories. A teacher at Kangambo Primary School in Petaoke district of Eastern Province attempted to defy the order by government that all civil servants should not apply for any census jobs. The named teacher applied with hopes that he will get away with it. However, when his name was called, members of the public recognized his identity, causing commotion until the district commissioner, Martha Mulenga, intervened. Patrick Soko here in Lusaka at Lusaka Trades, Prudence Chota at Heroes Stadium, and me in Petaoke District covered this story of census. Let's play the stories back to back and see exactly what happened.
But you can move, huh? You were in Petaoke.
Yes.
Let's get...
What started as a normal day with the district commissioner in Petaoke district, Eastern Province, Martha Mulenga, launching the start of the aptitude test for the recruitment of supervisors and enumerators at Petaoke Boarding Secondary School, turned out to be unpleasant at some point. This was due to non-adherence to the directive by government that civil servants and all those already in employment should not apply for the advertised jobs. However, a teacher at Kangambwe Primary School almost got away with it as he secretly applied and was called to attempt the test. At the mention of his name, members of the public realized he was a civil servant, causing commotion among the people who wanted to attempt the test.
Mr. Mkandawile, I advised in the first place, teachers, nurses, civil servants that have been employed by government, please can we leave chance for the youths that are not employed. It is very categorically said, you are on a salary. You want to deprive your fellow youths who are not, look at the camera, look at the camera. You want to deprive those that are not benefiting anything from government. Later on, these will be saying, President Hakainde is not looking after us. But it is you who is not helping the president. I announced there, don't say you didn't listen. You were there, Mr. Mkandawile. I came in here and I said, you didn't stand up, not until, mind you, don't argue with me. Don't argue with me. Which school do you come from?
I'm sorry.
Which school do you come from?
Where we belong.
Which school? Tell me the school. If you don't tell me, I'll call Debs. I am with Debs. Tell me the school. Mary, thank you.
District Census Coordinator disclosed that the process aims at recruiting about 541 supervisors and enumerators for the exercise.
They have come to attend the aptitude test, and those who will pass the aptitude test are going to be selected to be enumerators and supervisors. So the total number of people we are expecting to choose from here is about 551. He said everything in place.
Meanwhile, Petaoke District Commissioner Martha Mulenga has urged the Census Coordinating Committee to work professionally during the recruitment process of the 2022 census exercise to help the country achieve the purpose of the exercise.
His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema has put it very clear that only those that are not in informal employment are the ones to take part in the census. In order for them to have some empowerment, if someone is a civil servant, please, that we spoke very clear in the morning, they were not supposed to take part because they are already empowered by government.
The 2022 census marks the sixth national population exercise of Zambia since its independence in 1964, with the previous censuses being conducted in 1969, 1980, 2000 and 2010. Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News.
What started as a normal day at the Lusaka Business and Technical College in Lusaka progressed to be a very stressful day for over 24,000 Lusaka residents who came to the college to undertake aptitude tests to be among the 45,000 supervisors and enumerators short-term jobs for the 2022 census of housing and population.
Let people be divided according to the constituencies.
Some participants, however, feel the process was not well organized, considering that only one center was allocated for the exercise, which was catering for 5 constituencies of Lusaka, involving over 24,000 people.
Against the health regulations, and then it is not healthy for the people to be compelled to stand for such a long time in a single place.
Other, they are told to do this, so they're supposed to be guided properly to say you're supposed to be at this place, you're supposed to be per constituency. It would have been of help. Like for this, it's a clear indication that something is wrong somewhere. Let me even take this opportunity to say it speaks a lot for our leaders that they really need to improve on entrepreneurial things that need at least to boost us so that we stop lining up.
Meanwhile, Lusaka Province Permanent Secretary later informed the participants that they moved to the Hero Stadium where the tests were going to be undertaken and that transport was going to be provided for those who had no transport.
Without transport, we are going to provide transport to take you to Hero Stadium. So those who are here, you can start off and there. You know how the stadium is. It is going to be easy for us to organize you.
And Zambia Statistical Agency Interim Statistician General Mulenga Msepa in an interview informed this reporter that the overwhelming response was expected as those who also did not receive messages were given an opportunity to write the tests.
I think first and foremost, let me just say that initially we had a challenge. The district committee had a challenge with the venue. The response has been overwhelming. But with the guidance of the PS, Lusaka Province and the DC and the committee members, that is the District Census Recruitment Committee, District Committee, they came on board and we quickly arranged for a venue, which is the Hero Stadium. And so far, everything is calm and the aptitude test started some 2 hours ago.
It should be noted that out of the 24,000 people attempting the aptitude test, only 3,000 will be selected in Lusaka constituency. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
For a moment, one may think this is a political rally. However, this is a gathering of people hoping to be among supervisors and enumerators under the forthcoming national population of census who turned up in multitude for the aptitude test, much to the gratitude of others who saw a business opportunity. This is a group of youths at the Lusaka Business Technical College who seized an opportunity to help people while making some money by providing a service in form of a fee-paying toilet and charging mobile phones at a minimum fee.
Someone just came up with an idea, so we decided to follow it up, and we didn't know it could generate so much income. I think it's better to try it out than to just think about things.
People might enter, use the toilets, and the toilets will be dirty, and there'll be no one to clean them, and maybe buy disinfectant and all the materials that they use. So for us, the money that we're raising, we'll use the money to buy the cleaning utensils, the disinfectants, and clean.
They share with Camnet News that life is about understanding the people's needs and providing a service. Others say it is their desire to get involved in business, but that lack of capital has been a major setback further stating that the motive is not only to make money, but to help others.
Which people are going in, where are they going? Because the toilets and the room are too close to each other. So that's the reason why we decided to be here, monitoring everything that is going on and monitoring everyone who's going inside. And we are not just doing that, we are even helping people because the toilets are inside, you don't have toilets outside. You can find that people, they are in need, they don't know where. You can find someone may end up entering in a long room. But that's the reason why we are here to help people, not just because we need also money, but we need money, also we are making money, but also we are doing it for the people that are here. And as we said earlier, this came just unannounced. We was not aware that this thing can happen. When we saw the crowd people, they started asking for the tourists. Then we came up with a plan. Now, what if we do this?
Indeed, for today, their menu will be different.
You know, today we won't eat chunks.
Yeah, we're not
That's
eating
the fact.
chunks. Chicken.
We are going to eat chicken. We have gained in this.
Chicken.
So guys, the advice is no, opportunities everywhere where you see. Don't wait for someone to come and push you to do something. Anything that you see, aim on it, dream big, aim high, and do everything that you are supposed to, everything that you think of doing, it can happen. Just the mindset. If you think negative, you are going to be negative in everything. But if you think positive, you are going to benefit in everything that you are doing.
The United Party for National Development, UPND administration, has assured that it is not for handouts, but creation of opportunities. One only hopes those opportunities will come fast so that young people can find means to earn a living. So that some young people can find means to earn a living.
And they should follow up the COVID regulations.
Yeah, the COVID regulations. Make sure.
That's why.
People are not sanitizing there are no buckets, there are no face masks, but they are there.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
Alright, BMAC wants to shut me up, but
tell me about
you know me.
Tell me about the story you had you did
in Better UK.
I love the initiative, but I don't know how you just thought of it to say probably we decentralized the reporting of arrangement of that story. It came out perfectly, and you know,
we zoomed out to Better UK and back to Lusaka within a flash of this. So yeah, basically that was one of the teachers at the primary schools there. But you know what happens, Patrick, in rural areas, when you have a teacher, you like have a savior, you know. You get to know who they are because probably a teacher has over 1,000 pupils and maybe just 7 teachers. So it's evident that you will know who those teachers are. And you know, this man thought he would get away with it, and he decided to just apply. He applied initially. The memo to say they should not apply was done recently. They should not attend the tests, you know.
Yes.
But then, these people had applied earlier. But yeah, those SMSs, what. He tried his luck. He wanted to cash in so that maybe he can find capital, you know, as we are assuming. We don't want to think of the negative things, you know. So his name was called, and people recognized him, and the district commissioner was called to say, okay, this is exactly what is happening here. And they had that mini confrontation, and surely we hope that people have learned their lessons to just follow procedure. Once you're told to do certain things, just to avoid embarrassments. It's not necessary, honestly, because he already has a salary, unless if his salary is tied to loan sharks. You know, I call these financial institutions loan sharks because I wouldn't want them to be, you know, I wouldn't want to call them very good financial institutions because they enslave people.
You're right.
They enslave people, especially teachers. You know, when they were employed, these 30,000 and the medical personnel, and then someone just came up with a meme saying, mentioning 2 financial institutions that the clients are here. You know, there is 2 named financial institutions that your clients are here. Yes. Over 40,000 clients are here. So really, this is what transpired in Petauke, and we surely hope that people will adhere to guidelines next time when they are given to say, let's not follow this route, let's follow this route. Avoid embarrassments. For me, really, being embarrassed is, yes, it is part of life, but if it's avoidable, just avoid it. I think it's not necessary to be embarrassed over a stint of expected resources that may not even come your way, you know. Because they were writing those aptitude tests. In an event that you fail, what happens? You get embarrassed over nothing. And obviously that man did not even write the exam, so he was automatically disqualified, allowing other people to do the needful. Of course, Patrick was well informed that here in Lusaka around 2021 people were still writing exams, and also in Petauke district, because they started a little bit late, they were still writing exams, just making sure that they finish. Prudence Shota also in, I'm not sure if she included that fact in the report, she mentioned that Zamstats here in Lusaka only had about 1,000 tablets which were used for people to write exams. So they were giving chance.
30 minutes by 24,000.
24,000. So they were giving people chance to write in that. And then, you know, at the same time, it was basically an hour. I would call it an hour, because for people to walk in or to step out or to grab the tablets to give them to others, it would take about 30 minutes for people to stabilize, you know. So really,
I may not be surprised if they are still writing today.
Exactly. So we'll have to check on that assumption, if at all indeed it is true, and see to it that yes, indeed, people are done with exams. Obviously, we will get feedback regardless whether they are done or not. We'll have to engage Zamstats and just get to know exactly how the process went, where we stand as of today. However, Patrick, we have a guest in the studio, and we will be zooming him in on set. However, before we do that, let's zoom in one of the stories that will be very topical also when he comes on set. The Constitutional Court has upheld the Lusaka's High Court's decision to declare the election of Joseph Malanje as KWACHA Member of Parliament null and void for not possessing a secondary school certificate during the August 12th, 2021 general election. Delivering the majority judgment Wednesday morning, Constitutional Court Vice President Professor Margaret Mnalula ruled that Mr. Malanje failed to produce his grade 12 certificate to determine his eligibility to contest last year's election, which is the prerequisite for one to contest as a member of parliament. Even councillors nowadays need the grade 12 certificate, not so. So of course, for one to contest for any political office, they need minimum grade 12 certificate, which the court has found that Mr. Malanje does not have. However, people that spoke to him and some of the statements that were thrown here and there suggest that he is willing to recontest the seat. We will follow this, Patrick. You will camp on the copper belt. Yesterday, you were supposed to, we mentioned that you will camp in Kavushi, but you will have to move from KWACHA, Kitwe to Ndola, Kavushi, just to bring us this up-to-date information. You know who we are when it comes to election coverage, Patrick. Let's look at the story, then when we come back, we'll have zoomed in our guest on set, Mrs. Strone, just to discuss a number of issues.
The judgment by the Constitutional Court Wednesday morning, the 3rd of August 2022, left members of the ruling United Party for National Development who had gone to offer solidarity to their KWACHA losing candidate in celebration after the court upheld the lower court's decision to nullify Mr. Joseph Malanje's election as KWACHA constituency member of parliament, as he did not possess a grade 12 certificate.
The seat has been nullified and it now remains with the Electoral Commission of Zambia to take it up from there and give us a direction on how we are going to proceed from now on. But one thing that the court is telling us, the lesson that the court is sending across is that every person that aspires for public office must actually conduct in an exemplary manner.
After putting up a spirited fight to defend his election as KWACHA constituency member of parliament, the former lawmaker will be required to go back to the drawing board if he so wishes to recontest, following the Constitutional Court affirming the lower court's decision to nullify his election. In its majority judgment, the court maintains the lower court's decision, stating that it was on firm ground when it held that Mr. Malanji did not possess a grade 12 certificate as the said secondary school certificate, which is the requisite academic qualification when filing in nomination papers in line with Article 71D of the Constitution, was never produced before court. Meanwhile, the minority judgment states that the lower court erred in law, in fact, when it shifted the burden of proof for Mr. Malanji to prove that he did not have a secondary school certificate instead of the petitioner, Mr. Charles Mulenga, the losing UPND candidate. For the opposition Patriotic Front, this was another sad news, given the fact that last week the Concord also declared vacant the KWACHA seat after nullifying the election of Mr. Bowman Lusambo.
I'm shocked. I don't know the kind of justice that we are following in this country. I'm very, very shocked because in this case, two rulings have been made. There's the majority rule, which has upheld the nullification of Honorable Malanji's case, and then there is the minority rule. And according to the minority rule, is that the burden of proof should not have shifted to Honorable Malanji. The person who complained and who brought this case to court should have proved beyond reasonable doubt that Honorable Malanji did not possess a grade 12 certificate. Well, the court has decided, so it's work and work, so shall go back to KWACHA.
Known by many as Bonanza, Mr. Malanji took his appeal before the Constitutional Court in 2021 after a High Court judge nullified his election following a petition filed by United Party for National Development losing candidate Charles Mulenga. The former lawmaker pleaded with the Concord to quash the lower court's decision on ground that the lower court shifted the burden of proof on himself to prove that he possessed a grade 12 certificate when the petitioner, Mr. Mulenga of the UPND, failed to prove the allegations. So far, all the election of the opposition members which were nullified by the lower courts, only 2 have been declared vacant. KWACHA and KWACHA is calling for by-election in the next 90 days.
Sisters from Angola, they told me to keep you strong. Keep strong, man. Keep strong. And they don't know you. They're strong boys. They don't call us boys. They're just strong boys. Huh?
Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
Welcome back. You're watching the Camnet Breakfast. Like I mentioned earlier, to say we will be zooming in our guest on set, and he is here. He will help us discuss quite a number of issues surrounding this country's economic system, political, and many other issues that are happening in the country. Of course, Mr. Sichone, please welcome yourself.
Thank you so much.
Say hi to the viewers.
Good morning, viewers, and good morning to the nation at large.
Patrick?
Interesting. Well, our guest is a political scientist, is Musiani Sichone. He's going to help us discuss various issues pertaining to the political fraternity. Topical, Sharon, among issues is that the Bonanza and the Bulldozer have to defend their seats.
What's with their bees, anyway? What's with the bees?
Yeah. So now we understand that yesterday it was the verdict for the issue involving Mr. Joe Malanji, the former KWACHA constituency lawmaker. Now, let's zooming into it. Now that what Mr. Sichone, want to get your perspective regarding why should we as a country be proactive in ensuring that the political environment is conducive to avoid incidents, for instance, that bring us back to issues where the election is nullified, like in the case of Mr. Malanji. It is the same with Mr. Lusambo, where however, they are different issues.
The situations are a bit different, but both seats were, they lost their seats. Both elections were nullified.
Now let's look at the aspect of Mr. Malanji, the aspect of producing a grade 12 certificate. Isn't that indicating that the ECZ was not doing a good job when ensuring that while candidates were filing in their nominations? Let's get your perspective, sir.
First and foremost, that's a very loaded question because there's a number of questions that are there.
Answer them strategically.
Yeah, but that's why I'm here. So, first and foremost, it is important to understand the situation that led to the nullification. First of all, the point of reference for all of us, number one, is the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, which is, I think, in Article 70, clearly states the qualification of one to become member of parliament in any given constituency in this great republic of ours. Knowing very well that one of the qualifications is that one should possess a grade 12 certificate, which they should produce when filing in their nomination, alongside other things. But pivotal to this discussion is the fact that Mr. Malanji, based on academic qualification, did not, according to the courts, did not possess that qualification. And so those are grounds for nullification of his parliamentary seat. So we must understand that because the Constitution is the highest law in the land, and therefore any other law that falls under the Great Republic of Zambia, within the Great Republic of Zambia, that is customary practices, they fall under the Constitution. It's almost like a ceiling, eh? So everything that falls within this room belongs to this room. Anything that goes outside shall be deemed now and void to the extent of its inconsistency. So when we look basically at the requirements that the Constitution requires for somebody to be or to hold public office, the Grade 12 certificate is one of them. But I must mention, with regard to Mr. Lusambo, and one of the things I can draw you back to after post-election of last year, one of the things that you'll notice is that one of the stakeholders or the observers was the European Union. And in the recommendations that they made, I think there must have been 6 recommendations, is that some of these things, like the qualification of grade 12, having grade 12 certificate, should be removed. And from a theoretical perspective and an academic background, if you look at the original founders of democracy, that's Clisthenes in Athens, Greece, these things like academic qualifications were non-existent. Because when you look at issues of representation and also participation, qualification in terms of academics does not, is not one of the basis for actually being able to represent. Because when you need someone to represent a constituency in a house like the legislative branch of government, what it is that there are certain qualifications that were given back in the day when this concept of democracy was defined. For example, like a person should be from that constituency. A person should know very well. You cannot stand if you don't know, for example, the corners of a constituency or where someone is found, or when a thing is, shop is found, So along the years, as the concept of democracy has been evolving, and we've done away with some of those literal meanings, because, for example, in terms of representation, you cannot have an entire constituency to go to parliament like the way it used to be done. That is why we have representative democracy, and it is enshrined in the Constitution. So, in line, basically my point is that in as much as the Constitution say that, and we must respect and abide by the Constitution, but some of these things, for example, like academic qualifications based on grade 12, are things that we need to do away with if we are to strictly follow this idea of representation and democracy.
But we're also coming on the background where we are Zambia's official language, for instance, is equally English.
Yes.
And we have also people like yourself, Mr. Msiani, Mr. Sichone, who are able to articulate issues. You have your grade 12 and even tertiary qualifications. Now, when it comes to also Parliament involves the making of laws. If our people are not able to understand how to come up with laws adequately, or how to articulate or defend the laws they want to come up with, how then do we create credibility in our governance system?
I think the issue is not more of English. You know that this English that we speak
even writing
is unadopted. But does it mean that just because someone does not have a grade 12 certificate, they're not able to write? How many people do you know that can actually read and write and do not possess it?
Malanji himself. Okay. Malanji himself.
Yes. So how many people do you know? Is it a determinant of how much success is having a grade 12 certificate, a determinant of how much success one person has, whether be it in public office, be it elsewhere? And before that, I can ask you a question. Before that, this qualification of grade 12 was not there. It's non-existent. How many parliamentarians do we not know of that were sitting in parliament. And actually, the legislative and the constitution has been able to develop this whole time until this point.
Now, Mr. Strong, we are here to ask you the questions, not you asking us the questions. However, what are you trying to say? Are you saying the grade 12 certificate should be done away with?
Basically,
in other words,
in line with what the principles of democracy state and the initial founders of democracy, and also in line with what one of the recommendations that the European Union made, is that yes, the grade 12 certificate should be done away. Because what you initially do is that you are actually curtailing or cutting off other members of society that would genuinely even know how to better represent than those that are actually
using wisdom.
Yes, wisdom and many other.
But we can't leave things to chance.
Wisdom,
all right, let's pick this call. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Thank you for calling. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
I'm calling you from
Livingston?
Yes, my name is Livingston.
Come again? All right, Mr. Mkonga, please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes. I feel it's very important. Look at the nation. Which people I think I agree with that before I want to hold the truth. People are thinking about it because not a whatever no one is doing, that no, only that but now we can okay. People are arguing the same no, that's what brings trouble. When we are in the country, we are finding out that my favorite when someone has empty, never that's how they call it. I don't say that different. This talk is someone who has designed I don't like thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Livingston. They are representing. Now, Mr. Stone, just to add on before you respond to our caller there, I think I saw the report for the European Union, and I read quite a number of recommendations that were made for Zambia after the elections. But then I'm wondering if at all these are the same recommendations that they made or they are making to other countries. I'm going to give an example of China. They have a qualification for somebody to attain certain levels of offices, especially in the political field. Why should they recommend that we have somebody who doesn't have at least a minimum grade 12 certificate?
Because we also remember this is a country which says that education it must be prioritized.
Exactly.
And if we are trying to, and the president, especially the current president, has made it free to make sure that everybody
attends it,
has the right to access education. So this means that the argument that was being advanced that more people don't have certificates no longer exists, because every year the Ministry of Education offloads people with grade 12 certificates in thousands.
At least by 2026. Maybe respond to that, Mr. Strong.
And our caller was actually opposing.
I actually think that if I could pose a question, I know you said I'm not here to ask.
You're not here to ask a question.
If I could pose a question,
yes.
What is democracy? An ideological philosophy that entails that we need public participation and popular participation across all sectors and sections of society. Democracy does not distinguish between an educated person and a non-educated person. There are people that have been leaders not even having grade 12 certificate. You gave an example of countries like China. Each political system is very unique.
Yes, I know that.
I can tell you if I start unpacking the Chinese political system from where it started from, starting from Mao, the Kuomintang, and where it is today.
It will take the whole day.
It will take the whole day because we only have one political party that is there. The argument that I'm trying to advance, or basically what democracy advances, by having a grade 12 certificate, you basically cut off different sections of society that might not be privileged enough to be able to sit into classes. Remember, the concept of free education, okay, is not very new. It was there in Kaunda's time, but people of my generation, this is something that is relatively new. And also for people to come on and say, we want to be in class, is not everyone that is going to accept this thing. It takes a little bit more of time. But my argument is solely based on the fact that democracy does not allow us to distinguish between qualifications.
But do you agree that these political systems also are modified according to the country's needs and desires? Because if you take it, for example, the way the American democracy is, you cannot compare it to the way.
But it's a democracy
in Zambia. So probably it's also about the modification of theories. And what as countries you decide to agree upon to say these are the rules we will govern ourselves by. And like you earlier said in your preamble, you mentioned the aspect of the constitution, which Zambians themselves, or the laws which Zambians have also agreed to.
Okay. So let's speak this call. Patrick, hold your thought. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is from Dola.
From Dola?
Dola.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes. I'm trying to one question which was the issue of the president.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. The president is just to have we look at democracy almost like a religion. Yeah. I think when you look at the way the Western enforce democracy or not, it's just trying to what by controlling people are people in parliament. That's the last level is about legislation. That would be fear. The fear of trying to give this is the purpose of democracy itself. You see, other things too, but with the very democrat has been taken as a leader. So what is there is no way to go to parliament? Not all of us are going to be in parliament. Okay. When I want to comment next time on the KWACHA conference issue, from what I recall, I think the Honorable Maran wanted to present this conference again. I hope we have it. I'm afraid that if they have to have it, as a country we are going to spend a lot of money again on something that is not getting a control simple. Why was it to prevent the state like that level where the realize that it is to put itself in the place? That is better to the last part
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Dola representing there.
We want, I know this is the G12 may be dominating our conversation.
Exactly, but we've got other things as well.
So, but Mr. Msian, I think probably you can touch to it, but probably we also move into the aspect of what should we expect, especially now that our constitution also dictates that elections need to be held within 90 days after the nullification of an election. So now, what should we? What sort of environment do we need to create for the holding of the by-elections so far that have been confirmed? This is in Kabushi and KWACHA constituency.
First and foremost, I think we need to avoid such incidences like that have happened, like in Bowman's case, the Kabushi lawmaker and also the KWACHA lawmaker Joe Malanji. And you bring into question what are the things that have led to these things happening.
Yes.
Most important of all, that is contravening the Electoral Code of Conduct, and also issues, for example, like bribery and malpractice and offering of money and so on and so forth. I think most important of all, what we must advise strongly to political parties and those that will be participating in this upcoming election is to avoid such things that will lead to nullification and so on and so forth. And also, even to the major stakeholder, the Electoral Commission of Zambia. For example, the question that can be raised, and I agree with one of the callers that called, is what was the Electoral Commission of Zambia doing?
Where were they?
Where did they see?
How was the vetting process?
How was the vetting process? What really happened? These are some of the questions that would bring this topic or bring the seat into argumentation and competitiveness and also things that are happening. But also, we must also remember that by-elections are very expensive. Okay, we can avoid such things by just doing the right thing. So we pray and hope that the playing field this time around will be leveled. Everyone will be able to participate on an equal playing field, and so on and so forth. But we need to urge and encourage political parties to not engage in such vices, and also engage other major stakeholders, even the Zambian police, to ensure that such things in constituencies like this do not happen.
Interesting, yeah. And you mentioned the aspect of by-elections being a costly venture. So the president is also on record. This is President Hakainde Hichilema, who suggested that how can we avoid by-elections? I know we may not entirely avoid them in some cases, but how can we avoid by-elections? Probably we get your perspective on what would you suggest would be the best way to ensure that by-elections do not usually occur.
Maybe just to add on also, you can touch on how significant is the electoral body in holding elections, because we talked about the vetting process, not in detail though, but what has happened really is significant evidence that something wrong was done, especially when you come to the issue of the grade 12 certificate. If at all ECZ, where people are supposed to submit these credentials, could not verify whether it was indeed true or not, what measures need to be put in place to ensure that indeed, once somebody is given a chance to appear on the ballot, they are qualified to be there?
Okay, so I'll start with your question. You asked how can we avoid by-elections. I'm afraid the issue of by-elections cannot be avoided, because if you look at what are the grounds for having a by-election, it's either one comes out of office, the second issue is that maybe one dies, maybe another issue could be that their mental faculties are not 100% for them to be able to perform their duties. So the Constitution is clear on those things. Not that I'm a constitutional expert, but the Constitution is clear on those things, and it actually states the grounds for having a by-election. What happens, for example, if we don't have those provisions in terms of one leaving office? There are a lot of things that we'd have to remove for us to totally avoid the by-elections. We have to resit and repeal the Constitution on those parts, and so on and so forth, to ensure that those clauses do not exist anymore. But currently, as the Constitution stands and where things are, we cannot avoid the by-election, because the Constitution is clear on that, on such matters, in case there's an nullification or somebody dies, or whatever other provisions that are provided in the Constitution. But coming to your question, Madam, the issue of saying what can be done, what can the electoral body do? Electoral bodies, for example, is a semi-autonomous institution. Government, for example, cannot perform. Government, in short, cannot be everywhere. They have what they call administrative agencies, and these are semi-autonomous agencies that carry out duties on behalf of the state. And one of them, for example, each of these agencies, that if you notice, they perform only one particular function. Only one. So in this particular case, we have the Electoral Commission of Zambia, which is the body that is in charge of actually ensuring that all these things take place. I think if you look at our electoral history and what has happened in the past, I think the Electoral Commission of Zambia has done extremely tremendous work in terms of just ensuring that elections flow smoothly, but also ensuring the fact that there's a smooth transition, for example, of power from one government to another. That's evidence. For example, in countries where elections are heavily contested and where you see that there's no easy transition, even when the election is heavily contested, there you bring questions, for example, of, is the electoral body performing their function? We've seen other conflict-ridden countries where the electoral body is not respected with the respect that it deserves. It deserves. So, in terms of what the electoral bodies can do, for example, heightened surveillance. For example, even in terms of elections, ensure that, for example, when vetting these people, ensure that these things are, all the papers and all the qualifications are met, and also issues, for example, of political interference. For example, you know that the Electoral Commission chairperson is chosen by
The president.
So we need to detach some of these bodies from that political influence, so that there's that undue influence between politics and administration is curtailed. There must be a distinction. Who's the appointing authority? Because some of these things, for example, there was heavy talk, for example, during the election that Justice Chulu was appointed by President Lungu, and new information came to the fold where we're being told that no, they actually worked together. The CCMIH, no, Chulu was the boss of Edgar Lungu back in the day. So all these things, you see that there are issues that can bring these things into heavy contestation and bring these electoral bodies into dispute.
What does mutual separation mean to you? Obviously, you are aware that Chief Electoral Officer yesterday, a statement was issued that he will be separating at least on the 7th of this month, and it was mutually agreed. What does it mean?
Mutually agreed, that means there were no differences. To me, I think that there were no differences.
What are we expecting from this institution? Could it be that because he has connections with Malanji's nullifications of the election?
Well, I'm not aware of that. I'm not privy to that information, but if he says mutual separation, that means he left on his own volition. No one actually forced him, and I'm sure he had this discussion with the commission, and then he left. But going forward, we expect, obviously, somebody is going to be chosen, but who in this regard is going to be chosen is the person that we don't know.
But what would be your recommendation? What sort of a person?
Owing to the fact that this position comes from the president, you know, are we expecting somebody within the party? Would it be good for us to have somebody within the party, or a technocrat, or just anybody really? What are your expectations insofar as picking who should lead CEO at the moment?
You know, some of the things that can be unsaid, for example, that are not usually said in politics. You know, politics or governance is at 2 points. There's government or government that you see with your own 2 eyes, like there's appointment of this, and there's government that goes on in the background that the general public cannot be made aware.
Exactly.
You know, like you can't make avail every government secret to every person. But one thing that I would tell you, it would greatly benefit the president to appoint someone that he knows. Okay? And usually that was what we expect. Right?
And the Zambian people?
A history.
And the Zambian people, what would be their benefit?
For me personally, I would rather the president appoints a technocrat, somebody who has a proven track record, especially in electoral issues, and also maybe even somebody coming from the Civil Service Commission. I mean, from the
civil society, like he was from the civil society. Anyways, let's speak the scope. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, good morning. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Shipata.
From Shipata? Kalava?
I want to speak to the panel.
Please go ahead.
Zambia, our democracy seems fully mature. Because I can take that to USA and we can drive to the but in Zambia, it's like and the bad elections are so expensive. We want the government which is start making notice who call people what politic they have more members, which means in fact no people who are going to replace that. Because one, UKG, not the focus state, to put you other parties who are supposed to work for us as one man. We can accept that when we are here, there are things that were being done, but we have not listened. But now, the union leader will go to democracy. Because the one that which comes, not to shoot in parliament. So even if that elections are so expensive, I think bring you people who help these people.
Right.
If you have one and then it dies, yes. If you resign, you should remain with what direction all the time. No, we are tired and speak.
Okay.
Contradictions.
All right. Thank you so much.
We are not helping us.
Okay.
Now, is so safe.
All right. Eastern Province representing there. At least today we have nationwide callers, you know, Livingstone, Covert, Eastern Province. So yeah, we are only waiting for a few. But yeah, speaking of by-elections, actually our caller there is saying they are wasting our resources. Did you exhaust your response before we cut that?
No, but what you must understand is if we totally curtail by-elections, we're defeating the whole purpose of democracy and why we call ourselves a democracy.
Yeah.
You know, people should be allowed to contest and for these public
as many times an expensive venture.
Yes, and you know, the caller is right by saying that our democracy is not
pretty young.
Mature, because if you look at democracies like the United States, United States, if I'm not mistaken, got its independence 1776, the original 13 colonies of the United States. Look at Great Britain, political parties, the oldest political party, I think, is a Conservative Party that was established 1828. So you look at all these facts and look at where we are as a country. There's this immediate desire by our general, the different sectors of society to impose quickly, you know, these Western democratic ideologies. I think it's step by step. But for now, we need to deal with what we have and where we are at in terms of our democracy. But by elections, they're necessary evil.
I want you to also give me an analysis. There has been a school of thought that, for instance, countries like China, we understand they have a different political philosophy, although altogether. But because they hardly hold elections, it is the reason why they have been able to focus on development, as opposed to within 5 years, you go back to the elections. Before you exhaust probably your plan, you go to an election. Is even there a way, like a conversation that probably if we prolong the tenure of office from 5 to 10, is that even feasible? Just your perspective on that.
My perspective is, when you talk about countries like China, you've seen development that is happening and so on and so forth. Countries like China are a blueprint for us to question whether is democracy really the best system of governance.
Is it worth it?
Because if you look at history, let's say 1945 going forward and the Cold War, the beginning of the Cold War, the issue between democracy, communism, which one is the best ideology for governance, it is an ideological fight that the West has won. For lack of a better term, the West has won the fight, the ideological fight, because part of America's foreign policy is to ensure that democracy spreads to all the four corners of the world.
Yes.
Okay. So the issue of democracy being the best system of governance, from a theoretical perspective, I would tell you it's a question that academicians would argue and say, is it really? Because we're told if there's democracy, there will be peace. If there's democracy, there will be development. But look at countries like China. If you're talking about, we need to extend 10 years of office, President Chiluba ruled for 10 years. There was an election, but he continued. So what exactly is the right number of years for someone to actualize? What you must understand is that politics is not just about the environment and what you're surrounded with. You could have all the tools to succeed, but you'll never succeed. You also have to look at the personalities of these individual leaders. What kind of a person is he? Is he a person that is easily irritable? For example, we saw what we're seeing in Western media, if you're following the issue of Nancy Pelosi visiting Taiwan and between America and China. If, for example, President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Xi were easily temperamental person, missiles would have already gone. So we also have to look at the kind of personalities. Is this person a selfish person? Is he easily temperamental? Is he one that is benevolent and wants to look at the interests of everyone? People sometimes enter public office, especially in Africa, people enter public office for selfish reasons. So those are some of the issues that we need to start exploring
Exactly. Because what about, let's talk about the blueprint. For instance, if you look at the blueprint for Xi Jinping, he will tell you as a book about what you want to see China be. But in African, let's say even center it on our own country, Zambia, what do we want to see, they say 15 years from now or 20 years from now? Are we still going to be content with two-story buildings in the CBD, or with our minds being run by foreigners? But how can we change such narratives?
Okay, so the narrative that we, for example, like what you're saying, of saying, are we still comfortable with two-story buildings and so on and so forth? It starts with the political will. I'm telling you, I like to argue, for example, not because I'm a political scientist, but politics is the most important course or discourse in the world ever. Somebody will tell you.
Just like journalism.
Yes. No. Defending his happening today. It is a politician that is.
But who will tell the people that there is a war out there?
Sometimes
it
you
is
cannot
us.
do with news.
No, you can't.
I'm involved in propaganda. They could tell you lies. So it starts with political will. Without political will, there's nothing that can happen. We need a leadership that is advocating a mindset change, a leadership that is looking at the interests of the people and not just themselves. We know that political office comes with massive benefits. Okay, that most political leaders would not admit to you that I'm getting into office because I want a business transaction to come from one place to another. But basically, we need leaders and trained leaders, for lack of a better term. You know, trained leaders. I think the idea, coming back, not that I should shoot myself in the leg, coming back to the Great Hall certificate, the idea basically is that we don't want any Jim and Jack to be able to enter into public office.
Exactly.
But we've proved that these same educated people that are in public office, that are holding Great Hall certificates, they're the ones that are perpetrating issues of corruption, perpetrating issues of bribery, perpetrating all these other issues of vices that have made us as a country, or Africa as a continent at large, to be backward, for lack of a better term.
Interesting. I know we have.
Also, also not forgetting the Western powers and the colonizers' powers, their part that they've played in ensuring that Africa is in this particular position. Because these Western countries basically benefit from us slaving, giving them minerals, and they benefit from Africa's current situation.
Interesting perspective there. And before we let you go, just want to get your word of advice, especially in areas where they are holding by-elections. We've seen in the past, elections have been characterized by violence and other things. Just your word of advice.
Electoral violence is a very, very serious issue, because what that does, for example, like we earlier said, democracy is an ideology or a political philosophy of numbers. You know, what that does is that you issue intimidation. People are not able to vote. By having electoral violence, number one, you discourage massive political participation, because what we want is the majority of the people on the will. Because people can be registered voters, and then because of violence, you only find 2-3 people go to vote. You're defeating the whole purpose of democracy. So basically, we just urge, for example, like stakeholders, for example, like the police service, to be on heightened surveillance, especially when these issues, especially when it comes to election. We ask that huge numbers of police officers be taken to these places, just to be able to ensure that such vices do not occur again. And we ask the main people, the perpetrators, there's a political parties and any other person that has got an interest in any other candidate winning for their own personal benefit and perpetrating such vices, to desist from such things. Because at the end of the day, Zambia is bigger than all of us.
Exactly.
Because what we're trying to do is that we're trying to better our country. Some of these narratives or some of these biases or stigmas that are attached to African countries can be done away with. And it starts with us ourselves. It is us to change our own narrative. We can't ask the EU, we can't ask the United States to come here and tell us what to do. Because if we continue in such vices, we'll forever be looked at as countries that are just war-torn, countries that are associated with electoral violence. Why do you need to fight simply because someone is going to place a vote? We don't need that.
Interesting. Mr. Sichone, we would like to thank you for finding time to be with us in the studio. We hope that you manage to make it when we call you next time.
No problem, I'll be here. Thank you very much to Camnet TV, and thank you to the nation and the viewers at large. Have a good day.
All right. Well spoken there, and quite elaborate and interesting conversation that we've had with Musiani Sichone.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant stuff there. Brilliant young man, and the future is bright.
We just don't want to compromise when we
want to compromise. You know, this office, educated people, they speak very low when they're on the other side. Let them go on the other side. Give them a chance. Then we realize you don't even have a good top certificate.
I wish those prospects.
You have a statement of results.
Yeah, but
with
make sure you don't imitate Mr. Musiani. He's going for a second master's probably. Wow, you still want to say, I will do a grade 12. Yeah, so we zoom out with a story in Luangwa, where youths in Luangwa district say they have given themselves to illicit activities such as prostitution, alcohol and substance abuse due to limited economic activities in the district. We zoom in that story.
All right.
Luangwa district houses two of the biggest rivers in southern Africa, namely the Zambezi and the Luangwa River. This means that fishing is the predominant economic activity in the district. The freedom to trade with other countries has always enabled residents of such districts the freedom to diversify to other businesses as they can trade with nearby countries. The onset of the coronavirus pandemic saw a number of borders in Zambia being closed for imports and exports as one way of lessening interactions and reducing the spread of the virus. Youths in Luangwa district, however, lament that the continued closure of the Luangwa border post 2 years on has forced many of them into illicit activities as they have no productive things to do.
Tankalo nzunzika tisegurire nkoni border so that tizisebenzele deka so that makolo bathu ise as the youth beti bwana na mpamvu sibangavutike mkatsegurira border tisankhala bantu otandizira makolo bathu ovutika ndaba life yokuthi tikazinkhatha be mumabha tizunguluka chabe kulipena ma benefit eitipeza apo tiziononga manje teka tambo kugulisa matupi yatu kulibe vili vonse koma tsipempa boma emene mulipo tilangane nkoni.
Meanwhile, a local cooperative, the Zambezi Cross-Border Youth Multipurpose Cooperative Society, has also called on government to urgently consider reopening the border.
And then tikangana mani kuno Luangwa stilima or stita chani timachita survive mwamene mumans fishing and then na border amene aya kulibe farming kuno Luangwa. So tipempako kuli government yatu amene ilipo new dawn government kuti tandizeko kuti segulirako chani border yatu pa business amene tunakuchita kuti tibwanji tipitirize tikasebenza business yatu chifukwa tikangana mani kuno makubevo chita kuno.
In a separate interview, Universal Center for Investment and Development Director Acta Maunga has also spoken out on the situation in the district.
This area, the Luangwa border, is a very good business place because it has got a triangle business between Zambia, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. So as Universal Investment Center, we are appealing to government to consider the one-stop border post at this area, which can help or can promote trade, and this trade can promote investment and in both countries.
Youth unemployment levels in the country remain high, necessitating urgent measures to address the problem. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News.
There you have it, Zipporah Mushara, the lady herself.
She was in Luangwa. The lady herself was in Luangwa and brought us that story. Indeed, issues to do with youths keep on recurring on our news because we are the majority. Of course, I was talking about Lusaka trades, but I'm not that old. I still remember it from that, you know, but that doesn't mean I've crossed the bridge yet. I'm still within the, you know, thresholds, Patrick. So yeah, we are winding up the show. Thank you so much for being with us this while, and join Prudence Trevor tomorrow for the Business for Breakfast as she delves into business conversations. You too can always join in, and just in case, I think I can leave this open, just in case someone wants to feature on Prudence's show, just call us and send us those text messages so that we can have a conversation on the other side.
Yeah, even our dear viewers, those who are interested to discuss issues. They can get in touch with the same number and send us a text. Then
So
we'll respond,
yes.
because this platform is for everyone. It's
Indeed.
not just for the prominent or those who are doing something. Even yourself as a citizen, you have an opinion on issues that are happening in the country. So you can get in touch and request that to say you would want to feature on the breakfast show. Then we'll provide that platform for you.
Indeed, Patrick. Of course, we zoomed in some of the stories that made headlines yesterday, and we also looked at how the KWACHA is faring against the major convertibles. We also looked at the health corner. Of course, this also is your segment. We always emphasize that you can still send us the messages, call us and comment on this health segment and suggest some of the topics that you feel the doctors can tackle so that you can learn one or two things. Or if you want them to repeat one of the topics that you did not really understand, or maybe you want more information on that, you can do that. These are the Medical Women Association of Zambia, headed by Dr. Vualika. She keeps on bringing us different doctors, Patrick, giving us brilliant information insofar as the health sector is concerned.
Yeah, you are quite, you have said it right, Sharon, and they have never disappointed on that, and we'll continue with that partnership to ensure that we get our people informed in as far as health is concerned. Until next week, when Sharon and I come back on your screens as we are about to excuse them at the moment, stay tuned and remember, Camnet TV is not just
another channel. Thank you so much for choosing us. Good morning.